Tomatoes are a staple in many households, and for good reason. They are delicious and versatile. In this post, we are going to share with you some tips on how to produce tomatoes successfully. From selecting the right tomato variety to planting the right seed, we will cover everything you need to know in order to produce tomatoes successfully. We will also provide you with a few tips on how to care for your tomatoes once they have been planted. From watering them, protecting them from pests and diseases, we will provide you with everything you need to produce tomatoes successfully. So read on and learn how to produce delicious tomatoes that will be a hit in your household. 1. Gather supplies. Tomato production is a great way to earn some extra money and help out your community at the same time. Here are a few supplies you'll need to start tomato production. Land. You'll need to find a piece of land that is suitable for tomato production. You can grow tomatoes in a container or you can purchase land. Fertilizer. You'll need to buy fertilizer to help with the growth of the tomatoes. Water. You'll need to provide water for the plants. Pests. You'll need to get rid of any pests that may affect the tomatoes. Tools. You'll need tools to help with the production of the tomatoes. Cleaning supplies. You'll need to buy cleaning supplies to clean the plants after the tomatoes have been harvested. 2. Prepare the soil. Tomato production is all about healthy soil. The best way to achieve this is by preparing the soil before planting. This involves adding organic matter, such as compost or aged manure, and working the soil until it is loose and crumbly. After the soil has been prepared, you'll need to add the correct amount of lime to it. Too much lime will make the soil too acidic, and too little will leave the plants vulnerable to fungal and bacterial attacks. You'll also need to add water, and make sure to do this in a timely manner. Overwatering can lead to root rot, while underwatering can result in fruit that is small and lacking in flavor. A healthy soil is essential for a healthy tomato crop, so make sure to follow these tips to produce the best tomatoes you can. 3. Plant the tomato seedlings. Tomato production is not a difficult task as long as you have the right tools and information. Before you can get started, you have to plant the tomato seedlings. Make sure to choose the right variety of tomato and the right planting location. Water the tomato seedlings regularly and fertilize them with a balanced fertilizer when they are young. Make sure to protect them from frost and direct sunlight. When the plants are big enough, transplant them to a larger pot and start harvesting the tomatoes. 4. Fertilize and water the tomato plants. Tomatoes are a fruit crop, so it's important to give them the right amount of fertilizer and water to help them grow and produce fruit. Fertilize your tomato plants with a balanced fertilizer every time you water them. Make sure to read the ingredients on the label to make sure the fertilizer you're using is appropriate for your plants. Water your tomato plants regularly. A good rule of thumb is to water them every day, but you can water them more if the weather is hot and dry or if the wind is blowing. Make sure to fertilize and water your tomato plants in the right amounts to help them produce the best fruit possible. 5. Protect the tomato plants from pests and diseases. Tomato production is a process that starts with acquiring the right seeds and ends with the harvest of the fruit. During the production process, many pests and diseases can affect the crops, which can have a big impact on the quality of the final product. Here are some tips for protecting the tomato plants from pests and diseases. 1. Plant the right tomato variety. Different tomato varieties are better at resisting different pests and diseases. For example, the Roma variety is resistant to blossom end rot, while the breakfast taco variety is resistant to tomato fruit fly. 2. Use the right pesticides. There are many different pesticides that can be used to protect tomatoes, and it's important to choose the right one for the specific pests and diseases that are going to be affecting your plants. Make sure to read the label and follow the instructions carefully. 3. Mulch. Tomato plants need a good amount of mulch to keep the soil moist and help prevent weeds from growing. Make sure to apply mulch early in the morning or late in the evening so the sun doesn't heat up the mulch and cause it to decompose. 4. Keep the soil moist. Make sure to water the plants regularly and keep the soil moist. Overwatering can cause root damage and lead to diseases. 5. Prune the plants. Tomato plants need to be pruned regularly to keep them healthy and to prevent them from becoming too large. Pruning can also reduce the amount of competition from other plants, which will help the tomato plants produce fruit that is of a higher quality. 6. Harvest the tomatoes. When the tomatoes are ripe, carefully pick them and place them in a cool, dry location to avoid rotting. 6. Harvest the tomatoes. Harvesting the tomatoes is the most important step in tomato production. Early harvesting will result in a higher yield and improved flavor. Tomatoes are ready to be picked when they are slightly soft to the touch, but not mushy. The ideal time to harvest tomatoes is around the middle of the day when the sun is shining. To harvest tomatoes, use a hand harvester or a tractor with a harvester blade. Be sure to wear gloves and a protective mask to avoid getting tomato juice in your eyes. Once the tomatoes are harvested, place them in a pile and then either crush them with a machine or use a manual crusher. 7. Store the tomatoes. Tomatoes are a summer fruit that is grown all over the world. They are a favorite of many people because of their tart flavor. Tomatoes can be eaten fresh, cooked into a variety of dishes, or used to make tomato sauce. Tomatoes are a seasonal fruit and should be stored in a cool, dry place. It is best to store them in a sealed container so they do not get damaged. 8. Enjoy the tomatoes. Tomatoes are a delicious and nutritious fruit that is enjoyed all over the world. The best way to enjoy them is to produce them in your own garden. Here are some tips for tomato production. 1. Choose the right variety of tomato. There are many varieties of tomatoes available, and each has its own characteristics. Some are better for eating fresh, while others are better for cooking. 2. Plant the tomatoes in fertile soil. Good soil will provide nutrients and moisture to the plants, and will help them to grow. 3. Water the plants regularly. Overwatering can cause the plants to become weak and susceptible to pests and diseases. 4. Harden the tomatoes off. After the plants have grown large enough, they will need to be hardened off before they are ready to be harvested. This means that the temperature will need to drop below 18 degrees Fahrenheit for a period of 2 weeks. 5. Harvest the tomatoes when they are ripe. Tomatoes will ripen differently depending on the variety, so it is important to check the ripeness of the tomatoes regularly. 6. Enjoy the tomatoes. Once they are harvested, store them in a cool, dark place for up to 2 weeks. We hope you enjoyed our article on tips for tomato production. Tomatoes are a great vegetable to grow, and with the tips in this video, you'll be able to produce high-quality tomatoes in no time. We have provided a lot of information on how to plant and grow tomatoes, as well as tips on how to produce the best tomatoes possible. We encourage you to view through this channel, and we look forward to hearing about your successes with tomatoes.